Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of Correspondent Week. I feel like I'm in a home straight now, and our final of our promoted clubs is with us today. It's Championship champion Jack Toner, our Burnley correspondent. How are you, Jack?
Very well, thank you.
Is that an Aston Villa shirt you're wearing or a West Ham shirt?
Yeah, I mean we've had that. I think our chairman even tweeted it with the old Spider-Man meme saying everyone's got the wrong shirt on.
Yeah, I saw that go round. It's quite funny actually. Because yeah, he does look more like someone else's shirt. Is it Villa or West Ham?
I think it's more Villa, especially with the W sponsor that was what they
Yeah,
had.
that they did have that, didn't they?
I think we'll be unrecognizable to most anyway with kit and style of play. So looking forward to it.
Yes, let's talk about that first. I know we obviously recorded with you just after you got promoted. I said like April, but actually it was probably earlier. It feels like it was probably March you were promoted so early. We spoke a lot about style then, but for those who perhaps didn't hear that podcast, give the listeners and viewers a little bit of detail in terms of forget what you knew about Burnley. This is different.
Yeah, total transition really. Was just looking before. Out of the top 10 average passes in the championship, we've had three players in the top five. And none of those players feature in the long passes, like we used to have under Dyche. So it is more, total football. Last season was, we were relatively unchallenged really in the championship. We really did walk it. So interesting to see what challenges that brings this season because I think Company will have to probably have a more of a different approach tactically because we're not going to have it all our own way. But yeah, last season was fullbacks bombing forward, really patient style of play, getting lots of shots off, and we conceded the least amount in the championship and scored the most. So really exciting to watch. Really,
Burnley, total football. You
I
didn't think
know.
you'd ever say that, did you?
No, I didn't think we'd come back up for God knows how many years, let alone to have this new identity and this vision. It's just been a real breath of fresh air, and you can't help but compare it to sort of the Dyche days. But I think everyone's really enjoying this new style of play.
Yeah, I mean, we could go back and do that story, but we've done it. I do recommend that pod we recorded back in April where we spoke about the takeover and we said we were worried. We were really
Very.
worried for you when you went down there, even before it was confirmed. It was like, if they go, they won't come back. Absolutely said that. And we have to give AOK credit for what they've done in terms of division and the manager that they've appointed, who even during the summer, there was a couple of murmurs. A few clubs might be interested, but he's definitely staying for now without a doubt. How important is he to this?
Yeah, very. I think with the type of player we're attracting, it needs that kind of manager to bring them through. And I was having this conversation with a friend the other day actually, and we was talking about your Gerrards and your Lampards. I do think he's more than just that ex-pro. He's a coach with his arm around the shoulders, and he just is. Connor Roberts said in an interview, he said, "I thought I knew quite a lot about football." He said, and then when Vincent Kompany came here, he's like, "I realised I knew nothing." Just I think with how much information he gives them, I think he can do it all really. He's manager, coach, and really supportive, especially for these young lads, which I think sometimes a lot of people forget the human side of football. And Company said when he took over here and he knew that there was going to be so much change needed with a lot of our big players leaving and having to bring in the new bunch. It's all he's known really. It's what he did when he went to Anderlecht. There was a real changeover in and turnover in the squad there, and we've seen it again this season really with another busy window. So I think it will take a little bit of time, but we kicked on really early last season as well. So yeah, he's massively important to everything we do. He would be, I think his days are numbered. I don't think he sees himself being Burnley manager for as long as Dyche was. But yeah, whilst we've got him, we've just got to enjoy it really and see how far he can take us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's worth saying there's probably more investment to come, isn't there?
Yeah, we're not done. I mean, the positions we've strengthened are probably the ones that would be furthest down my list, really. One of the journalists that we have that reports a lot on us was saying that we have kind of a unique way of going about it, where we have a list of targets and we just go at them in whichever order they sort of spring to us. Really, it's not a case of for me, left back would be number one on the list, and we've still not done business there. Um, I have no doubt that we will. I don't think we'll be starting the season with Charlie Taylor, or we won't be starting with him as first choice for the
I've
entire
just lost
season.
10 viewers now you said that.
£4 million, Charlie Taylor. That would have been a bargain back in the day.
It totally would have, in fairness.
But yeah, I think. Sorry, carry on.
No, go.
I've lost my train of thought.
I was going to say, it must also be a bit shocking to you in the sense that you've come up, and as covered with Dan and Tomo on the Luton Sheffield United pods, Burnley are the powerhouse of the promoted clubs. The only one that truly looks like capable of actually spending money. And yet, as we said 12 months ago, sitting there going, worried about you. They might strip investment out the football club, etc. Does it feel a bit fortuitous in a way that you've come up with those two who clearly are restricted? Doesn't mean they can't stay up, but they're restricted, which means that it's almost universally accepted at the moment. You'll stay up. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think we're obviously a little bit different with having the takeover has put us in a different financial situation than what we have been. But I think it's just these forward-thinking owners really, and I guess we've not got an infinite pot of money to spend. It's not like we're chucking loads of money in, but I think the sort of wise investments. There's not many signings that we're looking at. Under the Dyche days, it was your Eric Peters and your Phil Bardsleys. As much as they were great players, you're not going to get any investment back on them. Whereas the players now, if we were to drop down, we'd recoup pretty much all the money for them because they'd be on good contracts. They'd be the young, aspiring players really. So, yeah, I think we've sort of had our time of, in all fairness to Luton, it's their first time up. I wouldn't expect them to have to do a lot of things.
You've been in that position.
Yeah, they'll have to do a lot of things to the sort of foundations of the football club, whereas we've already got that. So. We've had our windows where we've had really poor windows, so it is very surprising to see it being like this. It's a culture shock being a Burnley fan, that's for sure.
Is that part of the shock as well, that everyone's sitting there going, do you know what, these are going to be good to watch? Yeah, they'll comfortably stay up. Is that kind of concerning in a weird way for you?
Yeah, I think it's we're in that middle ground now, I think, whereas we're not going to be challenging top 7, really top 8. I don't see that, and I'd like to think we wouldn't be in a relegation zone. So it's just, where do we fit in with that being mid-table? So yeah, it is a shock. We've even under the good days of Dyche, there was still quite a lot where we were involved in. We was always looking over our shoulder really, rather than looking forward. Apart from the one season in Europe, yeah, I think it is a little bit of a shock, really, to be honest.
With that in mind, that's the good news. How hard did you laugh when you saw the fixture list?
Yeah, I wasn't really impressed, and then especially when Luton got cancelled, I was a little bit. But you know what? I think especially considering that we've still got business to do, I actually kind of said, you know what, let's get City out of the way first game of the season, because it's one of them where if there's a time to play them, is it now at home, first game of the season, the Premier League? We've sold out all of our home games apart from 6 already, so Turf Moor is going to be rocking. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and turn around and say we're going to get a result there. I'm never that confident, but it's one of them where you've got to play them at some point. And actually, if we can get through these first 6 or 7 fixtures unscathed and pick up a couple of draws, I wouldn't be too concerned if we were sitting in the bottom 3, because the fixtures lend us to be there. I think it's more a case of if we can, sort of get these players bedded in and work on our style of play in the Premier League and see where that sits us. I think realistically, it's not actually a bad way to have the fixtures.
No, to be honest, City, I can speak from experience for that as well. If you're going to beat them, game week 1 is as likely as any other time, possibly more likely when they're not up to kind of 100% peak. Just quickly on that, are you going to captain Haaland in 1?
He's already set as my captain, yeah.
Even though it's against you?
Yeah.
No doubt.
It's one of them where it's like damage limitation, isn't it? Where I can sit there and go, oh, thank God he hasn't scored. But yeah, I think historically, even obviously before Kompany's days, we've always been getting a battering off City, and obviously we got beat off them 6-0 in the cup, even though it was at their place. So listen, he's one of them where he could score a brace against an Arsenal, never mind us. So I think it's just a really easy decision for me, really.
How many did Haaland get in that 6-0?
3, I think. Or was it more?
It's easy to forget. I
I
know. I think
left. I left at 4 because I was like, I've had enough. And I don't often leave before the end, but that was one where
you know from historic playing at the Etihad, it's going to go to 5, so you might as well get out, right?
I was like, I'll go and get on that bus before it gets packed up.
Interestingly, though, Manchester United, 2009, first home game at Turf Moor,
Yeah,
and they would have been champions, I imagine. I
yeah. I
think.
think we went a good run of seasons where I think it was probably only up until either the season before we got relegated or even that season where we'd always beat the champions. Because we beat City, not City, sorry, Chelsea, first away game of the season. I think that was 3-2 and Fabregas got sent off. So yeah, we've always really had that about us where we could go to a big club or at least have a big club at home and pick up some points. So never say never, I guess.
No, definitely not. But it is fair to say it's a pretty difficult start and looks worse now with that Luton game missing.
Yeah.
City at home blank, Villa at home blank, Tottenham at home blank. Why did I say blank again? Maybe I thought it'd be blank for Tottenham points at Turf Moor in game week 4. City at home blank, Villa at home, Tottenham at home, Forest away, United at home, Newcastle away, Chelsea at home, Brentford away. Before we get to Bournemouth away in game week 10. Those first 5 home games: City, Villa, Tottenham, United, Chelsea. There's a challenge there, mate.
Yeah, I think there is. But I think Kompany came out in his interview last week and said if he had it his way, he'd play against City every month. He said because you're only going to improve yourself playing against the best players. So I think he's of that vision where he probably isn't just going to want to roll over and think, we'll set up. He definitely isn't going to set up just to have a 0-0 against all those. Whereas under Dyche, that's what it would have been. Yeah, incredibly tough. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're going to pick up loads of points because it's just not realistic. But I think it'd be a good challenge and it'll be a good sort of test for us and to see where we come out at the end of it. Like I said, I expect us to have a couple of where we pick up a draw where you expect a loss or maybe even nick a win or something. Hopefully against Tottenham in game week 4.
Oh, I don't doubt it, mate. I mean, it's worth saying at the end of that run, and you can kind of give a take whether you put Brentford away in there or not. It does turn into a really nice run. A lot of people might be looking at wildcards 8, 9, 10, particularly if you maybe going to go for a enabler over that period. You're not probably bench it at Brentford, fine, bench it away to Arsenal in 12, but it might be very useful for you around about that period, particularly if somebody's kind of cheaper, maybe even forward. If someone stands out in the forward area, it might be really, really interesting, actually. Yeah, like you, I think, and I had this conversation with Neil Grover, Bournemouth correspondent, because I got a rough start as well. It's almost like if you are in that bottom 3 at the start, okay, it's not the end of the world because that it's almost like if you come out of it and you're not in it, I could already look at you and go, you're going to be absolutely fine, especially with 1 game less as well.
Yeah. And that's it. I think unless we're sitting there in the bottom 3, lost every game 5-0, then I'm not really going to be that concerned. I think from an FPL point of view, as you said, yeah, it does change sort of game week 9, game week 10. A lot of our sort of forward players have been quite form related and quite patchy last season. So I think if we can get there and you go, actually this, Zarory's looking red hot or something like that, I think people will be looking because I think Kompany just instills the confidence, and I would imagine that there'll be definitely some picks in there that people will be looking at.
Did you turn down the possibility to reverse the Luton game?
There's been mixed messages of that. Some people have said, yeah, that we have turned that down, which I kind of don't get.
Yeah, but that's why I asked the question. I know it would have meant 4 home games, and it kind of looks really lopsided. My assumption was that the Premier League wouldn't have allowed 4 home games, but the word is that potentially they would have because it was unique circumstances and was through no fault of your own. I don't know why you would turn it down. Like from City as well, even from a momentum perspective, you play City, and then I mean it's 16 days before you play Villa in game week 3. It's not really any reason not to play the fixture if it could have been played at your place.
Yeah, I mean, my take on it as well is Luton are going to be finding their feet. Again, the better time to play them would be at Turf Moor game week 2. I think it would give us more confidence going into the other games. I mean, without, you never know what's going to happen, but you'd look at that and think that really should be 3 points for us. I think if we don't get any points on the board against City, it wouldn't be unthinkable to go Villa, Tottenham, and then even Forest away and only coming away with a point or something
Well,
through them.
suddenly we'd be looking at that rather than going, all those home fixtures are really difficult. If you're suddenly looking at that after City and going Luton, Villa, Tottenham, Forest away, looking at that as a group of four and going, oh yeah, I'm interested. We're having a very different FPL conversation here
Yeah.
to what we're having if you've got 4 home games and then Forest away as the 5th game. So
Yeah.
bit surprising if that's the decision they made.
Yeah. And I obviously listened to your pod the other week as well. It's saying it might not even get rearranged till sort of next year as well,
It might not.
which is going to be pretty annoying. I don't understand why we'd want to play it on a Tuesday and cram games in. It would make sense for it, as you said, rather than having a 16-day break to do 3 Saturdays, well, Friday, Saturday on the bounce or something. But there you go.
Maybe you're desperate to win in the first round of the Carabao Cup
Yeah,
and go
maybe.
all the way to Wembley. I have no idea, mate.
And then get knocked out by City.
Probably 5-0 or 6-0. Let's have a look at this lineup then. Big signing in goal, James Trafford. Obviously impressed for England under 21s in the Euros. Is he going to start?
It's a flip of a coin. I don't think a team like us, I know we spent a considerable amount of money this year, but I don't think we'd spend 90 million pounds on a goalkeeper if he wasn't going to be in consideration. I certainly think he's obviously going to be the long-term option, but I went to Genk pre-season and he didn't look great. He conceded from inside the opposition half against when we played in Portugal. So he's looked a little bit like you can look at it 2 ways. Maybe he's getting his mistakes out in pre-season, but it doesn't fill me with confidence to start with him game week 1. Given the fact as well, he spent the past 2 seasons on loan at Accrington Stanley and then Bolton. I think it's a big step up. And for me, I'd be much more confident seeing Muric in the goals against City, and then sort of easing him in. I don't see the need to rush him at his age 19. I mean, people say that goalkeepers don't peak until they're clocking on 30. So he's got so many years ahead of him. I think it would make sense for us really to ease him in slowly.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised Trafford does start. It does feel like a bit of a coin flip. But I guess for Muric particularly as well, if Trafford goes straight in, he knows for sure that's the preferred option and he's back up and he's only getting in if it goes wrong for Trafford or injury. Whereas the other way around lets him get a feel of the club, understand training practices and principles, etc. And we have examples of people like Gavin Bazzuno, who also was highly rated, come out of Man City last year, and it was like, not sure you're ready for this. And
Yeah,
Bazzuno was probably more highly regarded this time last year than I would say Trafford is now.
yeah,
Bazzuno ended up looking small in goal, but Trafford's not going to suffer with that.
yeah. He's a big guy, isn't he?
It's a giant. So yeah, I'm like you. I mean, I wouldn't be buying it either from an FPL perspective, particularly when you've got some better defensive options. But like you, I wouldn't be surprised with Muric. I mean, it is a flip.
Yeah, I think Muric did so well for us last season as well. I mean, he was linked with going to one of the Turkish clubs, which I'd be really sad to see him go, really, because I think anyone who plays pretty much every game of a promotion-winning season, especially finishing champions, having only just been brought in the year before. I mean, part of me thinks I don't quite get it. We've gone and bought Muric from City last season, and then we've gone in and bought Trafford this season. Are we going in for Edison next season? Like, it's
I don't
just
think so,
seems
mate.
just seems a little bit like if he was as highly regarded last season, maybe companies only seen this in him in the last 12 months, and he's thought he's too good to turn down. But
It's
yeah,
also opportunistic in the sense that obviously he was clearing and under 21s, and it's worth saying you had a deal in place before the final, etc. So it's not just reactionary to that. But there's every hope that in the future, and we are talking in years to come, rather than he'll be in England squad next year. I don't quite see that. But there's every chance he'll become England's number 1 in the future. And just by a product of the fact of him being an English goalkeeper in any case, that's a premium price. If it goes wrong, perhaps he doesn't hit expectation and you sell him to a fellow Premier League team in a few years, what's the worst case? 10, 15 million?
yeah, potentially.
It's probably where you're at as a worst case. If someone deems they want to pay for him as a backup or something, and
Yeah,
obviously
well,
if he goes on and he wants to go back to City or something, you get 3 times the money, isn't you?
yeah, which I'm kind of not so keen on that really, because I feel like I'm all for buyback clauses, and I understand they completely make sense. But from our point of view, we've already taken a massive gamble on an unproven player at 19 million pounds. So for City to have an option to buy back at 3 times the amount, yes, obviously it would be a good chunk of money anyway. But if he's as good as what the price tag, brings with it, then it's kind of like we've taken that risk for what? I would have been kind of keen to not have that in there, because if he's going to reach the heights that you hope he does, we're the ones taking the risk really. It would feel like we're just giving City a massive loan fee for them to bring him back. But hey, it's a good problem to have, because if he gets to that potential, then obviously we recoup the fee, and he's going to be an excellent servant for us. So I guess it's a good problem to have.
Absolutely. Is it fair to say Muric was kind of clear last year? There wasn't any real competition for him. You've bought Lawrence Figaro as well, haven't you?
Yeah, which he comes very highly rated from Leighton Orient fans. So when we'd signed Trafford, I sort of seen it as that's it. Muric is out the door. Figaro's the reserve keeper, and Muric will be gone. Perhaps some of the performances in pre-seasons maybe changed Kompany's mind. I'm not too sure, but the rumours on Muric leaving have definitely quietened down. But yeah, Muric was clear last season. I mean, he made a couple of mistakes, but none more than you'd expect from a team with as many new signings as us, implementing a new style of play, with a mixture of some of the old players in there still trying to adapt. I thought Muric, last season made far less mistakes than what I thought, and I thought it was excellent. Really, he was really really good with his feet. Last game of the season, I think he just nutmeg one of them. He's good coming out from his line and tackling with his feet as well. So realistically, I don't know what more Muric could have done. He was doing everything that Kompany was asking of him, and he played really, really well. He was one of our strong performers. So it would be very, really harsh to see him if he doesn't start game week 1, and that's the last we've seen of him really in a Burnley shirt. It would be very, very harsh.
Yeah. Back 4 centre backs. The one I guess everyone wants to know most: Jordan Beyer and Charlie Taylor. You've already given the game away on Taylor. We'll come back onto him. Beyer, starter.
Yeah, definitely.
You haven't paid 13 million. Well, it's ironic with what we just talked about with Trafford, but I presume you haven't turned this loan into a 13 million pound buy to not play him.
Yeah, I mean, last season we'd started with Howard Bellis and Charlie Taylor as the 2 centre backs. Didn't think Charlie Taylor did much wrong really, but Beyer came in against Preston when there was an injury, and never looked back really. It's quite a journey really, because I think we always looked and thought, oh, Howard Bellis is the standout clear best defender, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh wow, Bayer's now looking good as well, and I'm sure we'll get on some of the other names who've also looked really really good. Obviously this season will be a different test, but I think Beyer he was one of the ones in the top 3 for amount of passes completed, so he's one of them that is key to the style of play. Good in the air, fast, strong. Yeah, out of the centre backs, I think he's the standout for me, and especially at 4 mil, he's in my team.
Is he the best centre back in the club currently?
I think so, in my opinion. Yeah.
Difficult to have a doubt when you say that. I mean, that's a better question than is he nailed? You're saying he's the best centre back at the club. He's 4.0.
Yeah. I think we might even start with 3 centre backs.
Go on. Yeah, elaborate on that now. Go
on. So I think similar to and this is again mad to be saying this as a Burnley fan, but I think there is a chance that if we don't sign a left back by this opening game, that Connor Roberts will play that position where he plays like defensive mid, and I can see it being potentially, well, it will definitely be Beyer, and I think definitely Al Dakil, and then a toss up probably between Ekdal and O'Shea.
So what you're telling me is you could have 3 4.0 starters. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, if it was Al Dakil, Beyer and Ekdal, because O'Shea's come in. I don't understand why he's gone 0.5 higher, really. I think it's because he was a new signing, but seems a bit strange that he's higher than Beyer. But yeah, I wouldn't think it would be unfeasible for us, especially against the City, to play with 3 centre halves. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Who would play wing backs in that system then?
I think Al Dakil will push out to the left, and then probably.
Oh, so you're talking about a flat of 5 rather than specific wing backs.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay. In that circumstance, is Beyer still the best choice?
I think so. I don't really see a circumstance that he isn't in the starting 11 unless there's an injury. Or I still think his leadership. I think right-sided centre back. I think he's just the one. I can't see anything past it. And at 4 mil, when the way we're going to play, he's a good pick.
Is he in your team at the moment?
Yeah.
I'll take it on
game week 2.
I'll take it on the bench.
Yeah.
Okay. Reasons to go against would be, other than because I think of all the 4.0s, he's the clearest in my mind in terms of minutes for me. That's not to say he can play 90 minutes every single game, particularly as we saw a bit of rotation towards the end of the year. But I also think that's a little bit related to the fact you'd won promotion. The blank in game week 2 and the fixtures. And all I mean by that is he's looking at him and going, okay, yeah, that's great. He's sitting there for me. Do I actually want him to come off the bench if I need him? Like if I went with, say, Bulldog as an example, as a competitive, in the first 4, he's Bulldog over Beyer for 3 of them. Even at Sheffield United, and I think they're stronger, just purely on the fixtures. He'd go ahead of him. So am I better off looking at something as an alternative that would be more useful for me earlier on, particularly if I decide I want a wild card around about 8, 9, 10, when you do then come into a good run, am I better off looking at something else? Like, for example, even Luton with Kabore, 4 to 9 is pretty good. They'd probably be more happy for him to come in the team, for example. And that's the big problem. And obviously referencing Luton as well, exactly what we discussed with Dan Ashby. You don't even really want to go Kabore and Beyer, because if you go with any Man City defender in game week 2, you quickly find out you might have 10 players.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately is a problem. If you had great fixture lists and didn't have the blank, it'd be a definite for me.
Yeah, I think it's obviously down to strategy, but I think he'll be one of them where most of us will own him for a good part of the season. Whether that, obviously the start is harder to make a case for, but even at 4 mil, even if he goes up 0.2, he's still going to be easy to fit in at somewhere if the fixture swings as good as what it appears on paper.
So that's key point as well. So if I think he's going to go up the 0.2, then I should start definitely, because I don't want to buy him at 4.2.
Yeah,
I want to buy him at 4.0. He's got 7% ownership, which isn't big, but if there are 4.0s knocking about elsewhere who are doing quite well, where you might be struggling for clean sheets over that period, I'm possibly better off coming back to it.
Yeah.
That's all the thought process is. If he's not going to do anything for me and he's not going to increase in value, I should arguably look elsewhere. If my conclusion is I think actually, well, he'll play regularly and I think they'll surprise, and Villa, Tottenham, Forest, for example, is a period where clean sheets are definitely capable, and I go, yeah, I'm going with him. He's in at the moment, by the way. But so's Kabore, and I'm not going both, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm still toying with it. I think purely just on the fixtures. I was messing again last night, so I'm pretty sure he's in, but I keep sort of changing between.
So the other guys at 4.0 should be discarded then, or
I think for now, I think if you go in, you're not doubling up now with a blank in game week 2. So I think the best one clear is Beyer. I think if you were, I'm guessing we might go for a back 3, but if we don't, then it's only one other with Beyer, and that could easily be Aldakil, Ekdal, or O'Shea, or even Charlie Taylor at centre back. There's no. I would doubt it would be Charlie Taylor.
So Taylor is definitely for me avoid.
Yeah, definitely. Well, unless he plays left back opening game of the season. But again, do you really want him as left back when you know we're going to be changing that? There's a blank in game week 2. The first one, City. Taylor for me is hard to make a case for, really.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for the others as well, in terms of, look, you've lost Harwood Bellis as well. There's a case you might add. If you're saying Beyer is first choice of all the defenders, that's good enough for me to know whoever comes in is probably his partner.
Yeah.
That would be the take at the moment. So yeah, I think he's clear if you're going to go in there. When you keep saying back 5 potentially, is that just the Man City thing, or do you think that's something we could see more during the season?
I think we'll tinker this season. I think last season was one of them where, we had the argument with a few Burnley fans just in the pub and stuff when we played Sheffield United when they beat us 4-2, saying, "Oh, we have no plan B." And I was like, "Why do we need a plan B?" All season we coasted it, just playing the style of play we knew. Whereas I think this season and Kompany isn't going to be frightened to make these tactical changes. I think whereas the Burnley of past was don't change a winning team. You knew it was 4-4-2. You knew the setup. The only way it was going to change is, maybe we put an extra midfielder on and go 4-5-1. I think this season we'll see some tactical changes, and I think the defence is the easy one where you can turn around and go, will we play with 3 centre halves? Will we play with wing back? Whatever he's going to do there, and especially until we see what we do business at left back, because obviously Maatsen was on loan from us last season from Chelsea. They seem he's played quite a lot for them in pre-season, so whether they keep hold of him, but we've been linked for a few of it left backs. So I imagine that we are going to go back to a wing back system, but how that will look against the bigger clubs, I don't know.
I would guess with Matson that one of the reasons you don't have a new left back is that your club would like to get him back. And probably until Chelsea are willing to say, yeah, we're happy with Chilwell, we're happy with Cucurella, we're happy with alternatives. And that includes offensively, because they haven't even been playing him at left back, been playing him at right wing and at 10 and all sorts. That until they're happy with their group, he doesn't come back. And if it's going to wait long enough, you're going to begin to look at alternatives.
Yeah, we've
I
been
think
linked with
he
a left
probably
back
stays
from.
at Chelsea, I think.
Yeah, we've been linked with a left back from Ajax that we've been looking at as well this week. And I think Kompany is quite ruthless. I think whereas I think the Burnley of the past would have been, oh, we've had this player on loan, even though we didn't really play loan players. But if we had someone that we trusted in, we would have said that's our target and we would have gone for him. I think now with the approach we've got scouting wise, if someone's valuation doesn't match ours, or if it's a target that just runs away from us, we'll just look elsewhere. And I think, yeah, as you said, I can see Matson being one of the ones that slips away. He divides opinion really on Burnley fans because he gets the sort of Trent treatment where people say he can't defend. I think last season was a tough one to really compare him on because his job wasn't really being asked to defend that much because with the way we were playing. I think he can, and I think he's fast. For me, it would be a big miss to not have him back. I thought he was great for us last season.
You mentioned Connor Roberts back potentially covering that position at left back. I noticed looking at data that his passing numbers are silly.
Yeah.
As in, he'll average him and Cullen's a natural midfielder, will be the two that will clearly have the most passes on average per game. That's very unusual for a fullback. That's because he's going inverted quite often, right?
Yeah. So he will cut in, whereas Matson would have been the one that stays wide and bombs up and down, which is why I can see Roberts being the one that would shift into the middle more, which I think in turn would then push Brownhill further forward as well.
Yeah, from the central area.
Yeah.
So if he plays left back, are we potentially got a flying right back? Therefore,
no,
if
Roberts would play right back. Sorry,
no, but you're saying Roberts might cover at left back, or if Roberts plays left back, is he just going to push on down the left flank?
No,
or is he going to come into midfield?
I can't see him playing left back. To be honest, I think when we're saying, I think he would cut inside from the right, and he plays a lot in the central areas. When we've played with an inverted left back, it's been when we played Vitinho there. So I think if we started the season and wanted to play a right back at left back, it would be Vitinho rather than Roberts.
In the game at Betis, Vitinho played right back before you started to kill each other on the pitch. Didn't Roberts start at left back and move into midfield?
Right, possibly then. Yeah, I missed that.
Yeah.
I was at a wedding.
I was watching you two fight each other on the pitch. I mean, you weren't specifically there, by the way. But yeah, that's how it appeared to me. That would be a short term. Roberts is definitely right back for the benefit of those who don't know. Okay, I would have thought Beyer and O'Shea would probably be first choice centre backs. Would be my best guess from an outsider perspective.
I think O'Shea would potentially only play then if he looked to play a bit further out right of the three.
Okay.
So I think if Roberts was to play left back and move into midfield, then it might be Al-Dakhil, Beyer, and O'Shea.
All right.
But yeah, O'Shea, I'm not too convinced with. I've not seen enough of him really, and Ekdal was also excellent last season as well. So, yeah, it's a tough one because Al-Dakhil he's Iraqi and Belgian, but he got called up to the Belgian first team, so he's been capped now. So, for a young man of his age to play for Belgium, I definitely think there's something in there.
Midfield two, likely to be Cullen and Brownhill, I take it. With Brownhill, as you already mentioned, he's now, a few people was hoping to be 4.5, but as we've said previously, being everyone's team if he is, he's allowed to push on a lot more now, isn't he?
Yeah, 7 goals, 8 assists. I think he got last season.
That's good.
Good numbers. I still a little bit disappointing with him really because he was good at the start of the season and then sort of tailed off a little bit. He's good to sort of be up there and be with part of the patient passing and the build up play. I would sort of want a little bit more output from him really to get forward. I don't quite know still where his most natural position is. He's a good passer. He's a good footballer. Obviously, he was heavily linked with Leicester this time last season, and we did well to keep hold of him. I expect another good season from him, but it's another one to sort of wait and see what comes from him.
Yeah, I thought it was one of your best performers in the relegation season.
Yeah, definitely.
Daesh almost used him as a spare part on occasions, like, oh, I can play you on the right and stuff like that as an extra man out there. Yeah, I like him. Is that midfield strong enough to jump to this level? Brownhill and Cullen.
Yeah, I think so. I still think we need to sign another one. We've been heavily linked with Lokonga on loan from Arsenal, which I think will happen sooner rather than later. Which I don't know whether that will. I definitely think Cullen will start, so I don't know how that will impact Brownhill. I think that would just mean that he would maybe push further up anyway. Yeah, I think we need more strength in depth at least. I think Cullen and Brownhill are strong enough, and I think they proved that last season that they were good enough. And again, I think it goes back to what we said earlier of strong enough for what I don't really envisage as being in a relegation scrap. So to sort of sit mid-table, I think that should be fine. It's just if we get an injury, because Bastion's our reserve and he's not really at the required standard.
What's Manuel Benson, and why did official FPL use him as their face of Burnley for their game launch?
I think he's the most exciting. He had quite a lot of injuries last season, but he had an attacking return every 106 minutes last season. Only actually made 14 starts and had 11 goals, 3 assists. He scored the same goal 4 times in 4 weeks. One of them was against Blackburn, just playing down the right, cutting in. One of them against Bristol, and I think their manager, they came out at the full time and they said, did you not expect that? And he said, yeah, why do you think we put 2 players on him? He says, we've talked about it all week in training. We still couldn't stop it. So yeah, I think he's another one of them where I think he's actually injured for the start of the season. He hasn't been featuring in pre-season, although he had been linked with a move to Italy. So I can't see us cashing in. I think it is just an injury. I actually bumped into him outside the ground when I went to Genk, so he was there. I think he's
drinking as much as you.
Not quite, no. Wasn't on the Belgian beers the same as I was anyway.
Why am I not?
Or he might have been. That might be why he wasn't playing.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
I think he's one of them to look at us if we have a good run of form and patchy and he's in there and looks fit and sharp. I think he's one that you would move to. I think again one of them sort of game week 9, game week 10 to be keeping an eye on, which is why I think it's quite good for us from an FPL point of view for the start of the season. It's avoid for most of them and just sort of get the data and have a look. And I think it's one where you could be looking at having a couple really and sort of seeing where it goes. But yeah, he's had the best output in terms of numbers. He just hasn't been quite as consistent and had a lot more injuries. So the minutes would be the issue with him for me.
Yeah, I want to come back to the number 9 position, but who would start in the other 3, if you will, kind of between midfield and forward positions? What's that likely to be game week 1?
So Rory will play on the left. I think he's quite nailed on. Potentially Brownhill would be the one pushing further up, but I guess we've not got another centre midfielder yet. It all depends on the business we do, really. We want to get Teller back, but that's sort of dragging on a little bit now. We've signed Redmond as a free. We've had this trialist called Andros Townsend, or Androd Townsend, as what they named him on the Turkish stream. He's played really well pre-season, so I would be very surprised if we didn't sign him on. So I think on that right side it could be anything really. We've seen Vitinho play there, who's our sort of backup right back, which I can't see if we're signing Townsend and Redmond.
No.
I can't.
Where's that at as a deal with Townsend then? Because we know he's played for you. Is he your
Yeah,
player? Is not your player?
No, he's still down as a trialist, so I don't know whether seems as though we're waiting for something, because we got Redmond done pretty quick, and we've not really seen as much of him in pre-season, whereas Townsend has been getting the minutes. I would expect it to be, unless we see it as some kind of a backup to if some of the other deals don't happen. But I can't imagine that Townsend's short of offers. I would imagine he's staying, knowing that there must be something on the cards for him.
No, I mean there's probably something for both, in the sense he's obviously just recovered from an ACL injury as well. So it's probably good for him, and Everton's wages issues probably means he was never going to get a new deal there. So it's probably something that works for both. But it's probably more surprising with these sort of deals when they happen. He's training with X and he might get a deal. It's unusual to see it at Premier League level, particularly, that you'll have a physical trialist, someone playing for you, who's not your player. And it might be that they know it and it's not announced, or maybe they've kind of given them a month contract and like a probation. If you pass this proof fitness, you get a contract. I don't know. It's an
Probably working
unusual
on the
one, though.
video. Probably working on the announcement video.
Well, just a bit point of that. You've already seen him, right? So, like, mind you, yes, fair dues to your social media team, the best in the business. For anyone who doesn't know, you could happily lose an hour looking through Burnley transfer unveiling videos. Everyone in our Slack gets very excited when you sign a player.
Yeah.
Nobody even takes notice of who the player is. It's like, who is he? I don't know, but did you see the Teletubbies video?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So Zaruri left. Right, you think would be?
It's not going to be Benson because he's injured. We've obviously signed Brun Larson as well, which again, he is one that I think will be more of a backup player. I think he's only played a handful of games, sort of in, well, not a handful, maybe 50 or 60 games in the last 3 seasons. I think he's someone that Kompany knows well, so I think he's more of a squad player. But there's Goodmanson in there as well, who was good for us last season.
You said
Scott
more
Twine.
central now, right?
Yeah, there was a few comments that said he was Burnley's Kevin De Bruyne last season. He was kind of just floating around in the middle.
Well, injured.
Well, he was the opposite of that. He actually was fit for a bloody change. But yeah, I mean, Scott Twine, again, he was another one who was quite underwhelming last season, recovering from injury. He's got a lot of minutes in pre-season, so he could be the one behind the forward. We've also signed Amdouini, who I don't quite think is an out-and-out striker, so whether he would play behind.
This is the 5.5 new forward, Zeki Amdouini, yeah? Yeah,
Again,
I looked at him and he's kind of a strange profile because when you look at bits of him, like he scores good headed goals, but he's also very capable of like playing a pass through for someone who's clearly playing as a number 9 ahead of him.
Yeah.
So it seems like kind of strange profile, and he might be able to do both. It feels maybe.
Yeah, and I think for what we've paid for him and how sort of sought after he's been, I think he'd be the one where we would find a place for him somewhere. So I think there'll be points at season where he'll be a good pick. He might be the new Chris Wood.
Chris Wood, Nottingham Forest, 5 million. Any interest?
Yeah, I think so. He's been a prolific goal scorer over the years, hasn't he? Obviously had that injury last season. I think he'll always get goals. It's just I think he's another one you've got to get him on the right patch of form, really.
So up front, what's your instinct then? This forward position.
I don't think it'll be Weghorst. I don't think he'll still be here.
Has he been featuring these friendlies?
He came on at Genk to a ring of boos from the Burnley fans.
I'm not surprised, in fairness, because it was quite harmonious when he left. Many of us would have seen the Wales Netherlands clip when he scored for the Netherlands in the last minute against Wales, and Connor Roberts comes up to him and says, "Why did you not do that for Burnley?" And I don't mean like as in a jokey way, as in like you were shit for us, mate. Like,
yeah.
But he seemed all smiles when he come back for training and stuff.
Yeah, I can't see it. I think he's burnt too many bridges, and I think he'll be one of these that will move on to get someone else in. We signed Lyle Foster from last season in January, was one of them that we didn't need him. We were quite clearly comfortable with the squad we had. So he seemed like one to sort of bed in. I think he's had bits of mental health troubles in the past. So he really looked like he struggled to sort of get to grips with the style of play maybe last season. But he's looked sharp in pre-season. He's just missing a goal. So I think he will feature and get minutes, whether he will start and be the number 1, I don't know. Yeah, I think it really is just a wait and see. I think there's a lot of players to fit in there, and I think even if you manage to predict the starting 11 bang on, I think there's still going to be the option of, we've got all these options from the bench. Are the minutes always going to be that safe? So I think it really is a wait and see, but we've definitely got options up there. I mean, Rodriguez is back fit as well. He had a good start to the season for us last season and then got injured. I think his days are getting to the point of being numbered now. He's 34. I think he'll be phased into being a squad player rather than a starter. But again, there's nothing to say that if he's not one of these that scores 2 in 2, that I imagine that we'd be starting with him again. So who knows?
Best player to play number 9 in your squad at the moment is Weghorst.
Yeah.
He's got ability. I think it doesn't fit your profile and style, which would obviously be concerning, even if it was harmonious, and it's probably not. So I think either A, if it stays like that, I'm quite concerned for you in terms of scoring goals, not to the extent that I think you go down. But B, it makes me think that Burnley's regular number 9 might not be with a football club yet.
Yeah.
Like if you
And
sign Teller, does he play there?
Teller would play on the wing, I would have thought,
Yeah.
or sometimes he would play alongside, or he would get in and alongside. So whether that's the Amdouni role, there's been murmurs of that. Everyone seems to say that's what we've signed him for, but I just can't quite see it. I think he looks a little not lightweight, but I just don't think he's the out and out striker by himself. I think
Okay.
I think he needs some kind of support. But I think, yeah, it's hard to see who was, like last season, you couldn't have really predicted who was. It would have been Rodriguez, who you would have said was the was going to be the top goal scorer, and in the end, it was Teller. The goals were really shared around, and I can't see. It was probably like City after they lost Haaland and after they lost Aguero, and then before they signed Haaland, it was they scored goals. It just you couldn't pinpoint it on who. Whereas now, City have got their Haaland. We've not got that talisman up front who you can turn around and say 50 to 70% of goals are going to come through this man. I think they will all be shared around. It'll be Brownhill one week. If we sign Teller,
Yeah.
him the next, Rory Benson. I think there's too many options there.
And the reality is, even if you had a brilliant fixture list, it'd be very difficult to pick an offensive player from that at the moment, because you look at exactly when teams come up, you're looking for that Mitrovic, that Solanke, that type of player you can really hang your hat on and go, he's the one. You can't even look at this and really know who's going to play. It could be any one of the four or five of them
Yeah.
up front at the moment. And as I said, I suspect it might end up being someone who's not even at the club at the moment, who we've probably even heard of. You'll buy
Yeah.
someone from Royal Union Saint Gilles or something, or
Yeah.
do really well or something, because he's obviously got contacts out in Belgium and stuff. That's obviously very, very clear. Jack, where do you think you finished, mate?
I think I talked a good game on the last pod and thought we could be pushing on top half. I think the more and more you look at it, it does look quite tough because I think it involves a few clubs having a bad season. I'm going to say something like 13th, 14th.
How many of the correspondents do you think predicts you to go down?
I'd like to say none, but I'm going to say there'll be a few. I'm going to say 4.
One.
And
I would grass them up, but I can't. I didn't remember to check who it was. There's only 2 more said 17th as well.
Right. Okay.
So there's only 3 of the correspondents think bottom 4, and I think for a newly promoted club, that's probably quite impressive. We have had habits over the last few years. We've had the strong Leeds team that come up, the strong Wolves team a few before that, and obviously Fulham last year as well. Have all done quite well and come up and finished top half. I think that kind of top half, you're almost beating everyone outside the top 9 at the moment, which I think is probably a little bit ambitious for you. But I'll be honest, Jack, if you can get a goal scorer in, I've got you marked for 12th at the moment. I think you'll probably play the most controlled style of football in the bottom half of the league.
Yeah, I think
That's
fair.
what I think at the moment, and I think that gives you a great opportunity in a lot of games.
Yeah, I think it's something we're going to have to build, and I don't think it's going to. Rome wasn't built in a day. I think it's going to be. This is the style of play. We've got some real quality players in, but let's face it. How many of the starting 11 has actually got Premier League experience? It wouldn't be uncommon to say that there was probably going to be 5 or 6 appearances in there or whatever, because Charlie Taylor won't be playing. It wouldn't be unlikely for Rodriguez not to be playing. So there's a lot of unknown in there. I think it's to finish top half, you have to sort of hit the ground running, and there's not really as much room for mistake. Whereas I think we're going to have a few games where we're going to sort of have to get used to it. So yeah, I think it's a big ask, really.
Reality is, though, for anybody staying up, first ambition is to stay up. And should you end up finishing 16th or 17th this year, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's the reality. Good luck, mate. Do you want to plug anything before you go, pal?
No, I don't think so. Nothing to really.
Okay, I'll plug it for you. On the app formerly known as Twitter, you can follow Jack at Turfy Topper. And I will see you on September the 2nd for my annual trip and defeat at Turf Moor.
Bring your woolly hat and gloves.
If I need that in the first Saturday of September, we was joking, as soon as the game will get called off because of bloody heat wave. And I've stupidly scheduled you on Clash of Correspondence for the international break afterwards as well, so you can laugh at me twice. Brilliant. So yeah, you'll be back on Game Week 5. Window will be shut by then, and I think we'll properly know where you're at then and have a reassessment. Brilliant, Jack. Thank you so much. Good luck for the season, my friend. Sean Norton, hopefully, fingers crossed, he's on next on Correspondent Week to discuss Everton, who I've got top of my FDR in the first 8 weeks of the season. But I reckon he's going to tell you all not to bother. Let's see what he says. Sean and Everton, hopefully, up next on Correspondent Week. Just leave me to say thanks again so much to Jack. Cue music, please, man child.